You said we know why the regulators are targeting crypto companies and banks that bank those companies. But for anybody who's listening who may be unaware, let's explain why they're targeting this industry particularly.
Well, Elizabeth Warren said it herself. She wants a central bank digital currency. I'm dead serious. She told Chuck Todd, it's on John Deaton's, it just went around over the weekend on John Deaton's campaign Twitter account. Very, very short interview. Yes, she wants a central bank digital currency, and everything that is Bitcoin or even crypto based is deemed by them to be a threat to that total control that they're after.
Yeah. And again, onto the deception that the regulators in combination with the media are using, like going back to Signature Bank. Logan, if you could throw up that third screenshot I put in our chat, I think this is the smoking gun for Signature, particularly because, again, going down memory lane, if you remember the narrative around Signature, the Sunday that the federal regulators took it behind the woodshed, it was about commercial real estate. Next one, Logan. No, the one before that.
There you go. Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, wait, yes, that was it, Logan. That's my bad.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the smoking gun here, which is that the narrative around Signature Bank was it had problems with its commercial real estate book. It wasn't well capitalized. But then when it was eventually sold to Flagstar Bank, explicitly the regulator said the sale should not include the transfer of cash depositors related to Signature Bank's digital asset banking business. And so they tried to write it off as a commercial real estate exposure problem, but it seemed like they were directly attacking the bank's digital asset banking businesses.
Correct. That's exactly what they were doing, Marty. That's exactly what they were doing. This is unlawful. And I mentioned earlier that if they actually put that 15% limit out there for public notice and comment, if they were trying to do this according to the Administrative Procedure Act, they would have immediately been sued by the crypto industry, because that is arbitrary and capricious to say, 15%, you can't have more than 15% of your exposure to this one particular industry. Leaving that procedural question aside, from a substantive perspective, I agree with Austin Campbell's point that we should actually have specialist banks serving this industry. It is high risk from a liquidity perspective because there have been bank runs, right? No question. Everything moves fast in crypto, and you've got to be able to cash your demand depositors out on demand. And the only way to do that is for you to hold cash and T-bills, maybe T-bills, but that's it. Cash and T-bills against your customers' assets. Custodia, it's public information. We've never held anything other than short-term T-bills against our customers' funds, deposits. So that's the way you do it. And then you build a compliance department that specializes in compliance for high-risk customers. And we've proven you can do it. And the Fed knows, because the Fed has, across time periods, reviewed every single payment originated by Custodia. Yes, if you bank with Custodia, the Fed has been watching very, very closely. So, but they haven't found anything. We have a clean compliance record. So they know we're clean. So they know that somebody who specializes in this can figure out how to separate the wheat from the chaff and can manage the asset liability mismatch risk. But traditional banks, what they've instead tried to do is push this out to a broader group of banks. Most banks have watched what happened here and said, not worth the regulatory risk. And most of them don't want to invest in the specialized compliance people and tools that you need in order to bank high-risk customers. Now, you would probably quibble whether these are high-risk customers, but under the Bank Secrecy Act and other anti-money laundering and OFAC laws, they are deemed high-risk customers, and that's just the way it is. But the point is, it can be done. And yet the vast majority of banks won't invest in the specialized compliance requirements to do it. Ergo, what did they achieve? What they're really trying to do is push the entire crypto industry. Well, first of all, they wanted us to completely fail. And I actually think they thought that the entire industry would fail. They did succeed in murdering Silvergate, Signature, and Protego. They're not around anymore. Paxos had an application for a bank subsidiary. Of course, it's got its non-bank subsidiaries that are still operating. And then Custodia, we fought it. And I'm glad we did, because we're still alive because we fought it. They clearly did try to kill all of us, and they succeeded in killing 3 of the 5 and causing the 4th, the Paxos Bank application, to be, quote unquote, voluntarily withdrawn.
Well, you mentioned earlier that during Operation Choke Point 1.0, it was important that people stood up and sued the government and regulators for being arbitrary and capricious. And now with Operation Choke Point 2.0, targeting our industry, Custodia, the bank that you founded or CEO of, you guys are standing up, and you alluded to it, are fighting back on behalf of the industry and common sense, I would argue. And so what has that been like for you as a company, for you personally? As much as you can disclose, I imagine there's much that you cannot.
Yeah, well, look, I have a legal background, and I've litigated before. This is actually my 5th lawsuit in my life. 2 personal, 2 were when I was on the Morgan Stanley 401k plan as a fiduciary. I got personally named in 2 multi-billion-dollar lawsuits there, both of which were dismissed, but it does tend to focus the mind when you're personally named in a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit twice. But anyway, I did have experience with this, and I'm not as afraid of it as I think some others might have been. But I also just have a very deep sense of right and wrong. And did I expect to spend 4.5 years of my life working on this and not be a lot further down the path? No, I didn't. We knew it was possible that something would go haywire. But in the early years, Marty, you remember this, all those Wyoming laws, Washington, D.C. was embracing them, and the Fed was embracing them. The state of Wyoming had more than 100 meetings with the Fed, mostly Kansas City, but also Board of Governors people from D.C. And that they were meeting weekly to get the new charter up and running. And it is public information that Esther George, the then president of the Kansas City Fed, said she respected what Wyoming had done and thought they had taken a thoughtful approach to the new digital asset banking charter. So this clearly was going down a good path, a friendly path, until FTX happened and Elizabeth Warren's crew stepped in and started Operation Choke Point 2.0. And now, fast forward, 18 months plus later, here we are in litigation. We're at the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. The case is now what lawyers would call fully briefed, and heading to oral argument and then decision next.
Hey, do you still have your Bitcoin on an exchange? Don't hold your Bitcoin on an exchange. Take it into self-custody. If you're looking for an easy way to do that, we have the BitKey. BitKey is Bitcoin made easy to use and hard to lose. Take the first step. Get your Bitcoin off the exchange. Check out the link in the show notes. That'll get you 20% off your BitKey, or use the code TFTC20 at checkout.